Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. And in this video, I want to look at the chart of Paul Cezanne, famous artist. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button and please subscribe if you have not already. I will be holding my weekly class on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Price is $15 if you can afford it, $10 if you need to pay less. Or if you can't afford that, just let me know and we'll work something out. I want everyone to attend who wants to attend. That's the kind of guy I am. I tried to do this video yesterday and I messed up, so I had to scrap it. Yeah. But here it is. Paul Cezanne, famous, great artist, master. So, all right. He was a French artist and post-impressionist painter whose work laid the foundations of the transition from the 19th century conception of artistic endeavor to new and radically different world of art in the 20th century. Cezanne is said to have formed the bridge between the late 19th century Impressionism and the early 20th century new line of artistic inquiry, Cubism. We'll look at that. While his works are still influenced by Romanticism, such as the murals of country realism, he arrived at new pictorial language through intensive examination of impressionist forms of expression. He gave up the use of perspective and broke with the established rules of academic art, very rebellious, and strived for a renewal of traditional design methods on the basis of the impressionistic color space and color modulation, blah, blah. Okay, it's just describing his painting style. Both Matisse and Picasso are said to have remarked that Cezanne is the father of us all. His paintings provoke incomprehension and ridicule in contemporary art criticism, as anybody who's, ahead of their times and is pushing the envelope, trailblazing, they get criticized. That's normal. If you get basically criticism from stupid people is praise. Right. So fellow artists such as Pissarro and the art dealer gallery Ambrose Villard discovered Cezanne's work and were among the first to buy his paintings. Villard opened a solo exhibition in Paris Gallery, which led to a broader examination of the artist's work. And that's a photo of him. Intense guy, Scorpio rising, just like myself. All right. He was the son of a banker, and his father supported him throughout his life, which allowed him to pursue art. That's a luxury not everyone has, because you have to work a lot, and then it's really hard to develop your art when you have to work all the time. And his mother was a vivacious and romantic, but quick to take offense. And that's relevant. That's the reason I mention it. We'll look at that. All right, so let's see. He was into poetry, but that was more like a pastime, and he was into art, obviously. And okay, so his father pressured him, and he rolled into law faculty at the university and attended lectures. He spent 2 years, though he didn't love it, and increasingly neglected them, and devoted himself to drawing and poems. All right. So he went into art, obviously, not law. And I just want to look at all his paintings, just because, he's just such a great artist, and it's worth it. So this is like early style. Obviously, you can see it's good, right? But it's not very unique. There's no real character. There is some, but it's not like it's unremarkable, fairly unremarkable. And here's another one. It's just like, good, but anyway. Here's another one I quite like. I don't know if this is a bad photograph, making it so gray, but I like this. It's Japanese-esque, like Japanese brush paintings. This kind of, but it's very sketchy and it feels unfinished, and that's kind of part of his charm. We'll see that a lot in his works, this kind of sketchy, unfinished quality. All right. He studied in Paris. All right, decided to pursue, obviously, art. Studied in Paris, met Camille Pissarro, who is a famous Impressionist painter, 10 years older than him. And Pissarro mentored him. He copied old master works. He did this painting, which is quite a weird painting. Feels, I don't know, distorted, like tiny legs or something. The guy looks crippled and this huge head. But let's see. He had trouble in the beginning and he got rejected from art school, and returned home, and he went back and forth. I think he applied more than once and to this art school and got rejected again and promoted realism. He got to know many local artists. These are some of the most famous artists of all time: Claude Monet, Renoir, Alfred Sisley. Cezanne was under the influence of these older painters: Gustave Courbet, Eugene Delacroix. Let's see. Edouard Manet, who I already covered, he made the definitive break with historical painting. Manet, I think, was a little bit his senior, perhaps. In any case, and so a lot of these great artists who we consider great now, they were excluded from the Salon de Paris. Manet, Pissarro, Monet. And it provoked such outrage among artists that Napoleon III had Salon des Refusés, the Salon of the Rejected, set up next to the official salon, which I talked about in Manet's reading. Cezanne's paintings were shown in the first exhibition. The Salon rejected Cezanne's submission every year from 1864 to 1869. He continued to submit his works until 1882. That's persistence. Let's see. Okay, so a friend of Cezanne's became the Salon jury member, and the Salon jury member could submit one painting from one of their students, and he chose this painting. So that was the only painting that Cezanne ever got in the main salon in Paris, France. It's not that great a painting, right? It's okay, but he hadn't developed his style yet. He was still an immature painter. And the painting was hung in a poorly lit spot, and it didn't receive much attention. Let's see. All right. All right, 1874, there was an Impressionist group exhibition. Young painters in Paris did not see any support for their works at the main salon in Paris. So Claude Monet had a plan they for their own exhibition that they took up. And if you know painting, Claude Monet is like the main Impressionist painter, the most celebrated, right? And Renoir also. But, all right. So they put up an exhibition known as the Impressionists, and let's see, Pissarro, who was his mentor, pushed through Cezanne's participation despite the concerns by some members who feared Cezanne's bold paintings would harm the exhibition. And Cezanne isn't really an impressionist. He dabbled in impressionism, but he really took it to the next level, the next stage of evolution. So they were a bit, he was too edgy for them, the impressionists, who were already edgy, right? So that's kind of interesting. Cezanne was influenced by their style, but his social relations with them were inept. He seemed rude, shy, and angry, and given to depression. So in the group was Cezanne, Renoir, Monet, Alfred Sisley, Bertha Morisot, Edgar Degas, and Pizarro. Manet declined participation. For him, Cezanne was a mason who paints with a trowel. And that's actually a keen observation, which we'll look at in his astrology. Which is, and it's funny too. Cezanne caused a sensation, arousing indignation and derision from the critics with his painting, Landscape near Avar and Modern Olympia. Okay, so this is super sketchy, right? You can see it just feels unfinished, and it's almost like an insult. It's like showing up to a black tie event in like ripped tank top and cut off jeans or something like that, and your hair all a mess, and you're just kind of like giving the finger to the whole painting scene. Even though these were kind of revolutionary painters, this was beyond their, to submit something like this as an insult to their craft, right? But what's really interesting is that, so this is a prostitute, and this is a self-portrait. This is him, Cezanne, looking, hanging out with the prostitute, and here's the black servant in the background. Here's the cat, and it's a a rendition of Manet's Olympia, which we already looked at, which is masterfully done and quite revolutionary for the time. It was bold, and it was heavily criticized and reviled. And so this is on another level. This is almost like I don't know, it's just ridiculing Manet in a sense, because it's the modern Olympia, right? It's the same painting, or a version of the same painting, but done in a style that's just like, at that time, it's just, you wouldn't do something like this. You would never, you would be ashamed to put something like this out. It's like being dressed like a woman dressing in an overly revealing outfit and something that's very conservative. It's like, shame, how could you insult us with that kind of thing? Here's another one of his paintings, and this is quite nice, but again, it's a bit stiff. The colors are nice, in here. And there's some something there, but it's not really expressing his full potential yet. The exhibition proved a financial failure. This painting was the only one that sold. All right. Here's another one of his paintings, and here's getting a bit more into his eventual style, but this again is quite crude and rough. The way his application of paint, it's good. I'm not saying it's not good, and it's probably better than I could do. I mean, I'm pretty sure it is, but it's still a bit rough compared to his later style. Let's see. Okay, so he married and had a son. Hortense was his wife, and Paul was his son. He worked with Paul Gauguin, who was actually a friend, famous painter, and also friends with Van Gogh. Paul Gauguin and Van Gogh were friends. So he hung out with Gauguin and Pizarro. It's amazing how all these artists know each other. All these great famous artists, they all hang out. It's so cool. All right. Let's see. Then he started to come into his own and develop his style that he was known for, and he became really successful with. And here's a painting of his wife. Very bold colors, a little oversaturated for my taste, but you can see the blockiness of his application, the color patches, you don't really get to see, probably if you look closely, you can see the brush strokes, but here you can see like the unfinished quality around the edges, the sketchiness of it versus the central focus. And this is like the style where in the photographs where you have like the focused area and then the outer side, the exterior is unfocused. It's a similar kind of thing. Or I forget the name of it, where the outline of the outside of the photograph is like darker than the center. Similar kind of thing. Your attention is brought into the center. And this is a new development because they didn't do that in the past. They were far too conservative and uptight to leave any of the painting unfinished or to show the canvas, the white of the canvas showing through. And he's starting to leave it, create that style, which is quite nice, right? And this is very crude compared to painting that had come before it. Right? Let's see. Renoir visited him in Paris. Cezanne developed diabetes. Ambrose Vallard, an aspiring gallery owner, opened Cezanne's first one-man show in 1895 in a gallery section of 50 of around 150 works that Cezanne had sent him as a package. 150, that's a lot. The first buyer of Cezanne's paintings was Monet, followed by colleagues like Degas, Renoir, Pissarro, and later art collectors. Prices for works by Cezanne rose 100-fold, and Vallard has always profited from his stock. A Cezanne painting was purchased by a museum for the first time. Somebody acquired Cezanne's landscape painting. So here he's really starting to develop his style. And this is beautiful, right? You can see the brush strokes and they're masterfully done. They're perfect. They're completely vertical here, but they're all in a row, right? They're all like, this is somebody who's practiced a lot, you can tell. And the colors, everything is just perfect. And the same kind of thing where the outer edges are a bit more sketchy. You can see some of the canvas showing through underneath. It's just really, really well done. And it's getting a little bit sort of raw. And by raw, I mean not overly worked. He's leaving the brush strokes as they are. And so that creates a lightness, sort of like if you compare painting to cooking, the less you cook, the more you have like a salad, something light and refreshing, as opposed to everything that's like cooked to like a mush, right? He's changing the sort of aesthetic and style that is acceptable in art, and doing it masterfully, right? The colors all work so well. And I tell you, that's not easy. I had a very difficult time with colors. I was much better with form than colors. Colors are not easy. I might be a little colorblind, and that's partially why, but in case. Here's a nice portrait, and you can see the blockiness, and then you can see how he brought in the style of cubism. Like he created the foundation for cubism because he started to treat everything as shapes and forms, color blocks, right? And then like hard, edges and lines, and it's, very, very different. In a sense, it was becoming much more abstract. He was treating he was using the outer reality as a sort of template, but not being trapped by it. And we'll see this even more later. Starting to become a little bit abstract, detached from reality, in other words, and just using reality as a base plate or a template, but not being bound by it. Okay, here's an homage to Cezanne by this other painter, and you can see how technically accurate it is, right? But this is almost even more illustrative, because in art school, when I went to art school, there was a very clear delineation between fine art and illustration. And if you did something that was an illustration, they were quick to point out, this is not art, this is just illustration. You're just drawing something, and there's no artistic value to it. And I mentioned this because capturing art is an elusive thing. It's not easy to grasp. It's sort of like the 12th house. It has this elusive quality that's difficult to define, and therefore, you either get it or you don't. It's sort of like comedy. And Lucille Ball said the same thing. She tried to teach comedy, and she said, you either understand comedy or you don't. It's not really, it's a very difficult thing to grasp. But here, this is another artist who has made a painting of one of Cezanne's still lifes, an homage to Cezanne. And actually, Cezanne's paintings are going to be much more valuable than this painting, even though this is more technically accurate. And that's something that a lot of people who never studied art don't understand. They think art is really just about technical skill and pretty drawings and stuff like that. And that's not what art is. And so let's see, he became much more successful and just kind of just kept painting and painting and painting, and then he died. So here's Cezanne. I mean, this is the Cezanne we know and love. And this is excellent. His still lifes were fantastic. So were his landscapes. And I love that he'll leave it, unfinished. You can just see the raw brush strokes, the unfinished quality here, the shapes. This is Cubism. You can see like where Picasso developed Cubism just by looking at the way he handled paint. The raw brush strokes, the shapes, the boldness. The outlines are not, there's outlines, but they're very subtle. The colors are not overly saturated. It's just subtle, it's beautiful, it's shaped, very shapely. It's sculptural, and you can see why Manet criticized him, which turned out, he used it to his advantage. It's something that's one of his best qualities, right? The sculptural quality is treating a painting almost like a physical form. Here's a painting of skulls. This is, it's okay. He does much better with stuff. Let's see, how old was he? I don't know. Doesn't really say. 67, pneumonia. So not very old. All right, but let's just look at his art. Oh no, there's a few more things I could comment on. All right. This is more of his early stuff. Not very developed, but kind of similar style. Actually, Van Gogh did very similar kind of work early on. Similar feeling. This is just experimental stuff. He's still learning. This is more impressionist style, just being conventional, not being unique, not developing. But it's a little, fluffy and kind of, it's good, but it's not great. This is more his unique style. Weird kind of facial stuff. Some of his things are a little weird, but it's forgivable because his colors are great and his handling of paint is great. Now this is excellent, I think. I love how he's so bold with his decisions about, like this skull is obviously treated differently from these. They probably weren't so different in real life, but aesthetically it works. It's really nice. This is great because it's goofy, it's cartoonish. The bodies are distorted, the heads are small, the bodies are big and elongated, but all in all, it's beautiful. Lovely treatment of paint, you see the rawness, the texture showing through of the canvas. It's just like it's refreshingly irreverent, right? It's like, I just don't care. I don't care what you think. I'm going to do it how I see it, how I feel it. It's going to be authentic. It's going to be real. It's going to be me. And we love that. Everyone loves that. When somebody's just really just who they are, right? And they're just not conforming to the pressures of society or conditioning, just being authentic and real. Because it gives us permission to do the same. This is a common theme for that time, nude bathers. Matisse copied this style, but other people did as well. It's a regular theme. And I love how he bends the trees inward because it works thematically, or for the, just the painting, I forget how the painting is, what's it called? The shape of the painting. In any case, you can see a lot of rawness, the bare canvas, the sketchiness. It's just beautiful. It's pastels and brown, earthy, but it's just nonconformist. It's nice. Here's a beautiful landscape. Again, this is so abstract. He's really developing, the groundwork for not only cubism but abstract expressionism. Just not being bound by the reality of what he sees. He's using it as an inspiration, as a template, but he's going off script. He's being inspirational, and the colors are beautiful. The mountain blends in with the sky. Even if there was a lot more contrast in real life, he just made the decision that he wanted to treat them virtually, the same. It's beautiful, very blocky, very painterly. And he did the same thing with shapes and forms. Like, he just distorted whatever he needed to distort in order to make it work to fit in the painting the way he wanted it to fit. He wasn't bound by anything. Like, he's just using reality as an inspiration rather than a cage to be bound by. Yeah, this is equally fascinating. Big, bold shapes. Wonderful. I want to say choreography, but there's a word that I'm just like, have a mental block about. The way the painting is laid out. In any case, doesn't matter. It's beautiful. Testimonies. Yes, Cezanne, he is the greatest of us all. Claude Monet to George Clemenceau. I mean, high praise. Come on. I think it will be centuries before we get an account of it, Pizarro said. True. True art takes time to appreciate. Time will be the judge. He faced heavy criticism as well from these art critics who are just full of themselves but don't know what the heck they're talking about. Somebody said there certainly is an eye defect involved, astigmatism, which I'm sure he is also aware of. And then later, strange yet real, and revelations. Here's another critic. Since it was not yet fashionable at the time to buy atrocious works expensively, not even cheaply. Hilarious. And I love that they said that about him. It speaks volumes to the psychology of art and critics and the times, and the same holds true today. He is a great truth fanatic, fiery, naive, harsh, and nuanced. He will go to the Louvre. And then here, Picasso. Cezanne. Cezanne was the father of us all. Pablo Picasso. Fantastic. A kind of dear God of painting, Henri Matisse. All right, let's look at more of his paintings, and then we'll go to the astrology. And here's a theme that Picasso picked up. The, what are they called? Harlequins? They're clowns, basically. Picasso picked up this theme and riffed on it, but Cezanne did it first, and no doubt, I don't know, probably there were probably many others who came before who also did it, but this is very Picasso-esque. Here's a nice, beautiful watercolor sketch. Tremendous olive green landscape. Yeah, fantastic blue ocean. I love this. The brush strokes. They're curved. That's beautiful. I mean, it's one thing to do straight line brush strokes, but when you can do curved brush strokes all in a row and have it just be perfect part of the painting, it's great. The whole thing, right? It just really adds up. Beautiful. Again, here. Masterful, subtle, pastel colors. It's a bit more flat. Here again, brushwork, so good. Here's a bit more abstract and blocky. Lovely. Here again, I mean, you can start to see the cubism evolving. The way he treats this is so abstract. A bit more realism. Yeah, it's interesting. Cherries and fruit. This one's really beautiful as well. Some of these I think is a bad photograph. They look more gray, but I wonder if it was that gray in real life. Probably not. This one is great because he completely distorts the whole view of the canvas. We don't get an accurate orientation here. We're not sure which way is up. I mean, it's just in real life it did not look like this, right? He's twisting the plane of reality, and it's almost like you feel a little bit drunk looking at it because you're just staring at it, trying to make sense. Your eyes trying to figure out the foreground, the background, the orientation, and it just seems like this is almost like a vertical wall, but yet there's fruit just hanging out here. Here's another statue. He's doing that on purpose. He's not conforming, and that's the brilliance of Cezanne. He's not conforming to reality. He's just being like, this is the way I want it to look. Reality be damned. I'm calling the shots. I'm not listening. I'm doing what I think needs to be done, and it becomes very abstract. Here you get the sort of like cubist treatment of shapes and the fruit and the beautiful statue, and it's really nice, really amazing, and bold and rebellious. Here's similar. I mean, this is much more, same table, no doubt, but a much more accurate treatment of perspective, but very rustic, right, and sketchy. It was beautiful, still life. Here's some portraits. His eyes are interesting. The way he handles eyes. I mean, this one is not beautiful at all, but extremely earthy. and interesting. That's really nice. I mean, so many of these are beautiful in their own right. This one, amazing. Very sketchy, very abstract again, blocky. Nice watercolor. Here we get, I mean, this is like, you can see the Cubist sort of inspiration coming out. I mean, you just look at this and it just feels abstract, right? You don't even know what it is. It just feels abstract, cubistic. Beautiful. All right, let's look at the astrology. Okay. Let me just pull up. Slow Mercury. Pull up the dignities. Alrighty. Let me just check here. What's that? Yeah. All right. Now he's got a Capricorn sun in the third house, and his father is a banker, right? And third house for skills of the hands, painting, also for writing. Like he was interested in poetry, and actually somebody said he should go into poetry, but he didn't. Yeah, but in any case, third house for skills, right? And that's very prominent. And banker father, that's the Capricorn influence, and then the earthiness, the builder, the painting with a trowel, and like bricklaying and stuff like that is very much Capricorn, right? So that's super interesting and relevant. This sun is, let's see, it's ruling the MC, so his career. It's definitely going to have to be third house things. Not have to be, but ideally it will be. Now there's a nice trine to the ascendant lord Mars. His ascendant is almost identical to mine. So that's really nice between the sun and the ascendant lord. Totally supportive, and this Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so his ascendant lord is totally bonifying the sun. They're giving it a lot of strength, right, in the third house, so that it's making this third house really strong, right? Not to and then this Mercury is also here, and Mercury is 4 days from station. Yeah, so I guess that means it'll be stationed in 4 days. Or maybe it was stationed 4 days ago. Yeah, I guess that means that's what it means. In any case, it's very slow, and a planet that's slow is going to be far more powerful, potent. Like I have a very slow Mercury, and I've told the story before. I have a very slow Mercury, and I was always good at drawing because Mercury rules skills of the hands and intellect. I actually have a friend who's born 1 day before me, so his Mercury is actually slower than mine because 3 days before I was born, it was stationary. So 2 days before he was born, it was stationary. And he's also excellent at drawing and guitar playing. So skills of the hands, right? That's, yeah. So Mercury will often do that. And it's on the third house cusp in Capricorn. So this Mercury is excellent for all the third house things. And Capricorn is very it's going to be very earthy and practical and very grounded. for the third house things, it's going to be quite good as far as practical, being skillful and practical, right, and earthy and grounded. So drawing is definitely something that would come natural to him. So Mercury's also sextile, the ascendant, that's good, and it's ruling the 8th house and the 11th house. So themes of death, and also for the 8th house, the sort of playing, in combination with the Scorpio ascendant, this raw quality, this authentic quality, because Scorpio really has a need to be real, to be authentic. It's not that Scorpio can't be fake if it feels threatened or doesn't trust somebody or wants to manipulate somebody. That's kind of Scorpio's protection, right? But they're underneath that, really there's this very strong desire to be authentic, to be brutally honest and real, right? The Scorpio needs that too. And that's one of the things that you see very much in his in his paintings, this brutal honesty that's coming through. And that's the 8th house Mercury and Scorpio ascendant. And then the 11th house is that the groups that he belonged to, the artist groups, were going to be he's bringing them into his drawing. Like that's the kind of groups he belonged to, was these art groups. The skills that he maintained were part of the that's the connection to the groups that he belonged to. And that's also where his money came from. Well, his money came from his father, right? But supported by the groups. And then the dispositor of Saturn, of the sun, and the 4th house is Saturn in the 2nd. So security, right? Security is coming from home. It's also coming from the sun, father. And Mercury, his skills, his drawing. So that's quite interesting. Let's see what else. The sun is semi-sextile or semi-square with Sedna, but really the node here. So that's interesting. So there was some tension with the father. Wait, no, I'm not reading that right. Sorry. It's actually going to be with the moon. Okay, so tension with the moon. And let's talk about the moon. Father and mother were quite different, not the same. Sun and moon. Yeah, that's sun and moon. All right. Moon is in Pisces, conjunct Uranus in Pisces in the 5th house. So this is excellent, of course, because 5th house is for artistic creativity. 3rd house for skills, 5th house for artistic creativity, Pisces for artistic creativity. And then Uranus for the rebelliousness, being totally independent, for completely shunning cultural conditioning and norms, right? Uranus will not follow. Uranus does not want to follow. Uranus does not want to be conditioned. Uranus is like a non-stick pan. You try and condition it, you try and get some stuff to stick, and it just won't stick. It just falls right off. Uranus is the non-stick pan. Nothing sticks to it. It's completely clean. And then the moon in Pisces is so creative and expansive, and many artists and musicians and creative types have Pisces moons. I mean, it's one of the if you have a Pisces moon, you're I don't want to say you're definitely an artist, but you definitely can be an artist with a Pisces moon, like pretty much. I mean, that's a general, pretty strong generalization that will hold up a lot of times, especially in the 5th house, right? Moon is ruling the 9th house, so definitely bring in some higher education, some mentorship, some teachings from people like Pizarro, right, into his creativity, and a lot of rebelliousness. And Uranus is square Saturn. And one of the things about Uranus is your square Saturn is that it's very rebellious, And even though Uranus is outside of Saturn, it's the first planet outside of Saturn, and that gives it a lot of its identity. It's that one of the main things about Uranus is that it's beyond Saturn. Like Saturn is the law, the limit, the glass ceiling, the boundaries, the limitations, the restriction, the rules, the authority. It's the thing that you cannot go beyond, except that Uranus is beyond it. And that's one of the things that defines Uranus, is that it's already beyond Saturn. However, there's still Saturn, according to Saturn wants to limit everything, even because Saturn, if you look at the mythology, it castrated Uranus. So there is still this tension. Uranus is the father of Saturn, and Saturn ate all his children, and they escaped eventually. But Saturn wants the ultimate sort of control and authority over everyone, including Uranus. However, all Saturn could really do to Uranus was castrate him, which is pretty severe. But so there's a very strong tension between Uranus and Saturn. Uranus is the grandfather or the father of Saturn, and so it naturally kind of resides above Saturn, but Saturn is very powerful. So in other words, especially if there's a square, there's going to be an inability early on for Uranus to express itself fully, because it has to get past Saturn energetically. Even though it is already past Saturn, it still has to grow into that role and mature in that role. I know this because I have this aspect, Uranus square Saturn. I have Uranus on the ascendant, so I very much identify with Uranus, and I have had to play this out in my own life of expanding beyond Saturn. So early on, he's going to be hemmed in by Saturn's restrictions. And you can see this with his painting, with his, the criticisms of others that were trying to keep him, that's the Saturnian influence, trying to keep him in balance, trying to keep him like, don't you dare step out of line, boy. Don't you dare try and develop a new style. You better copy what we did, what has been done before you, right? Even if you do it poorly, you're not going to develop a new style. We're not going to let you. And Uranus is like, screw that. I have to develop a new style, because that's, otherwise I'm just dead, right? I have to do my own unique thing, right? And so there's that battle, and that happens with maturity. Uranus expresses itself with maturity. Saturn is often considered a very mature planet. Uranus is even more mature, right? Saturn's the father, Uranus is the grandfather. So it takes a little bit of age in order for Uranus to express itself. And being so conjunct the moon, that that's going to be very important for him. He's going to have to be a rebel. He's going to have to do his own thing. He's going to have to struggle to overcome Saturn, this square, which indicates hard work and struggle and limitations. And he's going to step out of bounds, out of line, into his own orbit outside of Saturn, where Saturn can't reach him anymore, and he did, right? So that is certainly interesting. The other thing is that Moon conjunct Uranus in Pisces is mentally unstable. Moon is a very sensitive planet. Moon in Pisces alone is going to be mentally unstable. Moon in Pisces conjunct Uranus is going to definitely have mental instability. So he was very sensitive, very difficult to be around, crabby, annoyed, which seems like much more of a Capricornian thing, but like moody would be the Moon conjunct Uranus in Pisces, right? So, he's kind of cold and rough exterior, very earthy, painting like a bricklayer, but internally extremely sensitive. Uranus creates very, very acute sensitivity. I have it on my ascendant, so I know it's like the planet of instant reaction. Uranus is like a thunderbolt, a bolt of lightning. So it's like 0 to lightning in lightning speed, right? No time, right? 0 time it takes to become like highly, electrified with Uranus. So that is something that is, relevant to him, and it's his moon. So it's like easily frazzled, very, very sensitive, very sensitive to criticism, very sensitive to people around him. He was not easy to get along with. He was shy, irritable, cranky, crabby, annoyed, right? And then he's got also his North Node and Sedna. I left Sedna in here because it's probably relevant in Pisces, because it's fifth house, it's creative, it's Pisces. And Sedna is a outer planet. It's a dwarf planet, sort of like Pluto, but farther than Pluto, very, very slow, long orbit. So it has a very spiritual quality, etheric, mystical. I'm not exactly sure the details, just that in here it's going to give this kind of like heightened spirituality, heightened sensitivity in Pisces in the fifth house. So what's really nice about Cezanne is you have this rough, earthy quality with the sun and Mercury in the third house that represents his intellect and his skills, right? Coupled with this beautiful, sensitive, refined fifth house Pisces quality. Both those things are together. You can see like the earthiness, the sculpturalness, and then the beautiful refined sensitivity, like his emotions were just like so subtle, right, and heightened and acute. It's really, really nice combination. The browns and the blues and the purples and all the pastel colors and these subtle saturation. That's much more here. Also here, Venus conjunct Neptune in the fourth house in Aquarius, right? That's adding a lot to it as well. Venus, so fourth house for that sculptural quality, like Michelangelo had the stationary exalted Venus. I think it was exalted, I know it's stationary, in the fourth house. So Michelangelo was probably the greatest sculptor of all time, and also architect. He was also an amazing architect, and that's fourth house beauty. That's artistic. That's artistry of the fourth house is sculptural, because it's the brick and mortar. It's the physical, the foundational, right? It's the early childhood, but the home itself, anything brick and mortar is or physical is fourth house, right? So if you have Venus, the planet of beauty, aesthetics, creativity, and Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, or co-ruler, of imagination and dreams and fantasies and illusion, conjunct by 4 degrees in the fourth house, that's going to create this very sculptural handling of paint. Now he's sculpting with paint, right? That's a big thing with Cezanne, is how he sculpted his paintings, and that's right here in the fourth house. Yeah, so that's key to understanding him. Seventh lord is in the fourth, so partnerships are coming home, and 12th house, and that Venus ruling the 12th house is just, that's another on another level for his creativity. So there's so much creativity coming from this Venus conjunct Neptune, as well as Moon conjunct Uranus in the fifth house with North Node and Sedna. I mean, tremendous creativity, right? It's everywhere. And then this Jupiter in the 12th in Libra, opposite Pluto. So this is here he's prone to depression and poor health. Pluto in Aries in the 6th. That's going to be difficult. Pluto is never easy, especially with difficult aspects. It's opposite Jupiter in the 12th. Jupiter is ruling the second house and the fifth house. So 5th and the 12th, very creative again, right? So much creativity, right? This is just like, this guy's living in a dream world most of the time, right? But prone to depression. Jupiter is our enthusiasm. It's our faith. It's our upliftment. It's what keeps us out of depression. So what afflicted Jupiter will be depressed. Planets in the 12th house are already prone to a sort of loss, right? They're difficult to access. They can be very creative, but at the same time, there can be a sort of loss from them. So financial, he was spending money. Well, good thing his father kept supporting him, because second in the 12th shows a loss of money, loss of resources. And Jupiter opposite Pluto. Yeah, that's depression. It's also we can see diabetes here. Jupiter and Libra. Libra is a very it's ruled by Venus, so you can see like fat and sweets, right? That kind of thing. Destructive tendencies from excessiveness, overconsumption. Just Jupiter and Venus kind of together is just like very excessive, right? Just like candy and chocolate and ice cream and fat and overeating and all that. Now, Mars is conjunct South Node in the 11th house, the late 11th house, 29 degrees. So his body, in fact, is not in great shape here, because Mars in Virgo is good. It's fine, but Mars at the 29th degree of Virgo, about to move into detriment in Libra, shows that, because Mars is ascendant lord, it's his ascendant lord. So he's going into groups, but because of the nature of progressions, the way planets move energetically, there's some loss of dignity. And when the ascendant lord is not in good dignity, the body's not good, right? It can be overweight, sickness, poor health, poor physicality, right? And also, if it's conjunct South Node will support it in the first half of life. The second half of life, it's going to drain the energy. Anything that's touching South Node will drain that energy. There can be good qualities from it. You can gain, like past kind of expertise, like been there, done that, graduated, right? But it can also destroy the quality. And Mars is ruling the body here in the 6th house as well. So health, we know health is going to be concerned because of this, and Pluto opposite Jupiter, 6th house. So yeah, definitely poor health, and he did die young. You guys, I have to pause for 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, back. Oops. Wrong thing. Okay. Alrighty. The other thing about Virgo is such a perfectionist. And he had to have things perfect, or otherwise he would get depressed and just want to give up. That's a Virgo quality. Virgo is very harsh on itself. I mean, Virgo is harsh on everyone. Virgo has a criticism for everyone, but it criticizes itself the most, right? And criticism is often involving groups and networks, right? They're critical of him, he's critical of them, probably, right? I mean, certainly. Although we only know that in the Wikipedia, it only mentions other people's criticisms of him. It would have been interesting to see his criticisms of them, because I'm sure he was, right? That would be interesting. He also has this square to Chiron in the 8th house, right? And so square to the nodes, and anything square to the nodes is a tension during the whole life that has to be dealt with. You have to face it, because there's this draw, this pull, the obsession with getting to the North Node. And the Chiron is kind of in the way, right? Whatever square the nodes is in the way of that. I mean, the nodes are kind of like an arrow or a compass. You could see like the north side of the compass, the south side of the compass, and it's pointing you in a direction. Wherever the node is pointing you, that's where you're headed, inevitably. Like you just can't help it, right? And if there's something holding you back from that direction, it's very annoying, and you have to face it, right? And so Chiron is weird. it's a weird planet. It's a weird rock that is halfway in between a asteroid and a comet, and it's in between Saturn and Uranus. Has a weird orbit. So it's kind of out there. It's very unique, right? And it deals with wounds and rejection and weirdness, science fiction, and in its higher expression, healing, teaching, mysticism, even shamanism or astrology, things like that. But for here, I mean, it's more like, you know, the weird aspect, and that he has been called weird. His paintings have been called weird. There are weird things that I pointed out within his paintings, some weird, you know, strange perception and perspective. They said he had astigmatism, and that's why he painted the way he did, which I don't think is the case. I think it was this sort of Uranian and Chironic influence. Excuse me. Oh, breakfast. Chiron is in Gemini, so also influencing the drawing, right? Because skills of the hands. Mercury. It's also retrograde, so it's even more weird, right? And so there is a quality that is just, it's his paintings are strange, oftentimes. Sometimes they're incredibly beautiful, and that's more having to do with this Pisces and Venus conjunct Neptune, right? And Jupiter and Libra in the 12th, right? But other times there's a certain strangeness and weirdness and oddity that comes from his paintings, and that's, you can see here with the Chiron in Gemini in the 8th house. The 8th house is going to make it deeply weird, like structurally weird, like weird to the core, right? It's not a superficial placement for a weird planet like Chiron. Yeah. Chiron is also aspecting Neptune, it looks like, with a sesquisquare. So weird imagination. Okay, so his draconic chart is virtually the same, almost exactly the same. Mars, his ascendant lord, moves into Libra, so that's fitting. Certainly it shows that his body, his physicality was you know, weak, diminished. Everything's Sun moves into Aquarius, and now it's having more 4th house influence, so moving into that sculptural physical quality that he brought into his paintings, right? Also group-minded Aquarius, friends were important to him, being part of the group, even though he's very asocial and not easy to get along with. It was still important for him to be friends with his fellow painters, and in his hometown of you know, at least France, Paris, France, and other wherever. But everything's pretty much the same. Other than that. Alrighty. So that is Paul Cezanne, a master painter, one of the greats. And I hope you enjoyed this. Please come to my class on Sunday, but you'll have to email me and let me know that you want to come, because I'm not a mind reader and I need to put your email on the list. So do that. And guys, please hit the like button if you can, if you enjoyed this, and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below, say whatever you like, and hit me up if you'd like a reading. Well, you can check out my website at macroastrology.com, or just email me directly at macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. And that's it for now. Thanks. Bye.